as a leader, I don't need to know everything. What I need to do is surround myself with people that are experts in their field to help guide and provide. And it goes back to that empowerment. I hired them and brought them into the role. Be a startup or a smaller company, in that you do have to wear multiple hats. If you have a black and white policy, your hands are tied. You either have to do one or the other.
Hello, good morning. So today I've Gary with us, who has 20 years of experience when it comes to the HR level. He is skilled at scaling the workforce, planning for the future, managing HR operations, and he understands what it takes to build a successful workforce, which is by combining different people of different skills together. He understands that people should be trained to a level where they are more comfortable doing what they are, which is why Gary is the best when it comes to growing teams. Let's welcome Gary on 10 Minutes of Hiring Wisdom, where he will tell us about what he's learned along the way, where he's currently working, and if he has any tips for job seekers. Hi, Gary. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How about you?
Good, Gary. So, Gary, the first question for you is how do you approach workforce planning and scaling when you're brought into a role?
Sure. Workforce planning. Um, it's really taking a look at our existing workforce. What is that workforce going to look like in the future? What does our product look like? Are we going to add services? Are we going to add uh, different sections or segments to our existing product? And really being able to plan out what that's going to look like. And there's a constant kind of ebb and flow with an ERP system. Are we bringing on new clients? Are we providing kind of maintenance or stability to existing clients, and really needing to scale to that? We have an amazing sales team, and so we are going to be doing some scaling in the very near future to be able to bring on these larger clients, because what we're currently looking at, maybe uh, smaller customers, is where we kind of really started with. But now that we're progressing and bringing on larger, we are going to need the workforce that's going to be able to support the coming change.
That makes sense. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think I'd like to touch upon some of the smaller customers that you mentioned. So, how does a business, for example, because you've been in the field for quite a while, how does a growing business know when it's time to venture off from smaller businesses to larger businesses, and what's the route usually that businesses take?
Sure. So that's a great question, because sometimes there's an uncertainty there. And when you are looking at a lot of smaller companies will start out taking on smaller companies because they're manageable. But as we kind of grow, the opportunity there to utilize or collaborate more and work with larger companies, because at some point you never want to say no to somebody, right? And it's kind of a, I'm sorry, we've grown too large to service you now, isn't it the best customer approach? And I think really where it comes into is cost. And what is it costing us? What is it costing our clients for us to provide those services? And at some point, as the customers grow, those vendors that they're working with, or companies that they're working with, are also going to continue to grow. So there's always a level of uncertainty, and but then there's also legacy companies that may not have grown, but they've always been with you, and so you continue that relationship just because of the longevity and the relationship and trust that we've built with them.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Gary. Gary, my follow-up question would be is seems like your business is doing great, and with the specific sales specialist that you have, you will be acquiring new customers. So let's go on to the main question, which is what is your current company? What does it currently do, and what is your role within that company?
Sure. So my current company is Anetka, and we are an ERP company primarily focused on the food and beverage side. And so we have manufacturings, we have distributors, transportation, And that is really our primary focus in food and beverage. And for me, I am the global human resource director within Netka. So I am responsible for all of the HR functions within Netka.
Okay. And I know that Enacta is a startup, like initially it started off as a startup. Um, how exactly, like for a startup, you need to wear constantly multiple hats and everything. And because you're leading a global division, you might have to wear multiple hats. So, how do you make sure that you're not too lost in so many different roles and responsibilities, but you're also being effective and efficient?
No, great question. Um, so Netca's been around for a while. They initially started in the construction area, but then pivoted during the recession, and so we're still small. We're only 100, right around 100 people right now. We grew considerably last year, and it could be a challenge. Be a startup or a smaller company in that you do have to wear multiple hats. And I think um, it's important not to take on too much, but it's the prioritization that really matters. In that um, you can't get caught up in the minutia. You need to consistently be focused in the specific areas, and then understand at what point can you move that or that specific task or work to another individual. I'm having kind of that experience now as our India uh, office is growing, and so we've added um, a couple of people on my team there, as that is where our primary growth is right now for our development side. And so it's really identifying when there's too much and being able to bring on someone that is um, better equipped to do that. And I also think it's important to understand, as a leader, I don't need to know everything. What I need to do is surround myself with people that are experts in their field to help guide and provide. And it goes back to that empowerment. I hired them and brought them into the role because they are experts, and that's what we need.
I love that. I think it's very important for leaders to even recognize that, okay, they might not know everything, which allows people beneath them to ask questions because they won't feel afraid that they have to know everything. So, a leader like that always gives room for people to come in, make mistakes, but also ask questions. So, thank you so much for sharing that, Gary. Gary, my last question for you is a lot of companies have their own purpose, they have their vision, they have their value systems. So, as an HR director, how do you ensure that the HR policies that you design are aligned with the company's vision and values?
Sure. Values are extremely important, and in ways I think you can always um, make sure that your values and the policies or procedures that you're creating align, um, if you consider it from the people aspect of it. A couple of things that you always have to be cognizant of or aware is culture, and where the people culture. So, am I making a policy that makes sense in the U.S., but in turn alienates our India colleagues? That's a problem. In in similar to Canada, we have right now the U.S., Canada, and India are our primary areas and countries, and so it's important to make sure that you're looking at the larger picture, and then really oftentimes people will come to me and say, I think we need a policy. And I'm like, well, what's the intent of the policy? Are we creating a disparate impact to maybe a potential group by creating these specific policies? Or um, my my preference is to leave them somewhat intentionally vague so that there is the opportunity um, to kind of go through situation and see if you have a black and white policy, your hands are tied. You either have to do one or the other. And I think again it goes back to people being able to make mistakes, right? To have that opportunity to learn, and I think by creating policies or procedures that allow that growth, um, or those mistakes, helps that individual grow as well. But if you have a policy that is very black and white, and it says, well, you did this, so you can't work here anymore, um, you're really, your hands are tied. And so I think being able to look at a number of things, and what are our values, and people is one of them, and we have to care for them, and not create obstacles for them, but help them grow.
Okay, no, thank you so much, Gary. I think your global perspective on making sure that the policies that you design are consistent with no matter where your employees are, making sure that you take an empathetic approach towards your employees, but also ensuring that you are well aware of what your employees want by creating an environment where they can make mistakes, ask the right questions, and learn from those mistakes is something that's very important. Our time is up, Guy. It was a pleasure having you as a guest, learning from you and learning from your empathetic nature regarding what it takes to be a true leader. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Manon.